I'm going to read to you from Fairy Tale, this book, which is going to be published on September 6th of this year. I went to the far wall in my imagination with this book. If you read it, you'll understand why. It's full of terrible beings and some that I hope that you'll come to love. It's a long story with a really simple idea. It's about a boy and his dog on a life or death quest in another world. The boy is Charlie Reed. The dog is a female German shepherd named Radar. The world they find themselves in is Ampus. They have many adventures on their way to the deserted and haunted city of Lillimar, and I'm going to read you one of them. Because we're starting somewhere in the middle, you won't know all of the background, but that's okay. Here we go. Mid-afternoon. The day was warm enough for me to have worked up a good sweat. We hadn't seen any refugees for a long while, but as we reached the foot of a rise, long but with a slope too mild to be actually called a hill, I heard a scrambling from behind me. Radar had come to the front of the cart. She was sitting with her paws on the front and her ears up. I stopped and heard something ahead that might have been a faint, chuffing sound of laughter. I started forward again, but stopped short of the crest, listening. "How do you like that, sweetie? Does it tickle?" It was a high, fluting voice that cracked on sweetie and tickle. Otherwise, it was weirdly familiar, and after a moment I realized why. It sounded like Christopher Polly. I knew it couldn't be, but it sure did. I started forward again, stopping as soon as I could see into the dip on the other side of the rise. I had seen some strange things in this other world, but nothing so strange as a child sitting in the dust with a hand clamped around the back legs of a large cricket. It was the biggest I'd seen so far, and red instead of black. In his other hand, the child held what looked like a dagger with a short blade and a cracked haft held together with string. He was too absorbed in what he was doing to see us. He stuck the cricket in the belly, producing a tiny spurt of blood. Until then, I didn't even know crickets could bleed. There were other droplets in the dirt, which suggested the kid had been at this nasty business for some time. "Like that, honey?" The cricket lunged, but with its back legs hobbled. The kid pulled it back easily. "How about a little in your—" Radar barked. The kid looked around, not losing his hold on the big cricket's back legs, and I saw he wasn't a kid, but a dwarf, and old. White hair straggled down his cheeks in clumps. His face was lined, the ones bracketing his mouth so deep that he looked like a kind of ventriloquist dummy. His skin was the color of clay, and he still reminded me of Polly, partly because he was small, but mostly because of the slyness in his face. Given that sly look added to what he was doing, I could easily imagine him capable of murdering a limping old jeweler. "Who are you?" No fear, because I was at some distance and silhouetted against the sky. He hadn't seen the gun yet. "What are you doing?" "I caught this fella. It was quick, but old Peterkin was quicker. I'm trying to see if it feels pain. God knows I do." He prinked the cricket again, and this time between two plates of its carapace. The red cricket bled and struggled. I started pulling the cart down the hill. Radar gave another bark. She was standing with her legs braced on the board at the front. "Curb your dog, Sonny. I would if I was you. If she comes in near me, I'll cut his throat." I set down the poles and drew Mr. Bowditch's .45 from the holster for the first time. "You won't cut her or me. Stop doing that. Let it go." The dwarf, Peterkin, regarded the gun with puzzlement rather than fright. "Now, why would you want me to do that? I'm only having a little fun in a world where there's hardly any left. You're torturing it. Peterkin looked amazed. Torture, you say? Torture? Oh, you idiot. It's a damn insect. You can't torture an insect. And why would you care? I cared because watching him hold that thing's jumping legs, its only means of escape, while he poked it again and again, was ugly and cruel. I won't tell you twice. He laughed, and he even sounded a little like Polly with his ha-ha interjections. Shoot me over an insect? I don't think so. I aimed high and on the left and pulled the trigger. The report was much louder than it had been from inside Mr. Bowditch's shed. Radar barked. The dwarf jerked in surprise and let go of the cricket. It hopped away into the grass, but crookedly. The damn little man had lamed it. Only an insect, but that didn't make what this Peterkin had been doing to it right. And how many red crickets had I seen? Only this one. They were probably as rare as albino deer. The dwarf got up and dusted off the seat of his bright green breeches. He swept the ragged clumps of his white hair back like a concert pianist getting ready to play his big number. Leaden skin or no leaden skin, he seemed lively enough, lively as a cricket, so to speak. And while he'd never sing on an American Idol, he had a lot more voice than most of the people I'd met in the last 24 hours, and his face was all present and accounted for. Other than being a dwarf, never call them midgets, they hate it, my dad told me once, and having a shitty complexion that could have used a shot of Otezla, he seemed pretty much okay. I see that you are an irritable boy, he said, looking at me with disgust, and maybe, I hope so, just a trace of fear. So why don't I go my way and you go yours? That sounds good, but I want to ask you something before we part company. How come your face is more or less normal and so many other folks seem to be getting uglier all the time? Not that he was any poster boy himself, and I'm sure the question was on the rude side, but if you can't be rude to a guy you catch torturing a giant cricket, who can you be rude to? Maybe because the gods, if you believe in them, already played a trick on me. How would a big fellow like you know what it's like to be a little fellow like me, not even 24 hands from ground to crown? A whining note had come into his voice, the tone of someone who had, in AA lingo, a ring around his ass from sitting on the pity pot. I put my thumb and finger together and rubbed. See this? It's the world's smallest violin playing My Heart Pumps Purple Piss for You. He frowned. Eh? Never mind, my little joke, trying to tickle you. I'll go on now if you don't mind. Do that, but my dog and I would feel better if you put that knife away before you do. You think just because you're one of the whole ones, you're better than me, the little man said. You'll see what they do to ones like you if they catch you. Who will? The night soldiers. Who are they, and what did they do to ones like me? He sneered. Never mind. I just hope you can battle, but I doubt it. You look strong on the outside, but I think you're soft on the inside. That's the way folks are when they don't have to struggle. Haven't missed many meals, have you, young sir? You're still holding the knife, Mr. Peterkin. Put it away, or I might decide to make you throw it away. The dwarf jammed the knife into his waistband, and I sort of hoped he'd give himself a cut doing it. The nastier, the better. Which was a mean thought, that I had a meaner one. Supposedly I reached out. Then I had a meaner one. Suppose I reached out and grabbed the hand that held the red cricket's legs together and snapped it, as I had Polly's, as a sort of object lesson. This is what it feels like, I could tell him. This is what it feels like. It was too easy to see him using a chokehold on Radar while he used his dagger on her. Prink, prink, prink. He never could have done it when she was in her prime, but her prime had been years ago. But I let him pass. He looked back once as he went over the rise, and that look didn't say, well met on the city road, young stranger. That look said, don't let me catch you sleeping. No chance of that. He was on his way to wherever the rest of the refugees were going. But it wasn't until he was gone that it occurred to me that I really should have left him, made him leave that knife behind.